Hello, everyone. I am Nicole Carpenter from Au Pair in America. Today, I'm excited to chat with Britt Bernard, one of our wonderful host moms, about her experience hosting an au pair. As a parent who is a healthcare professional, the Bernard family is able to host a new au pair among the visa and travel bans as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic because they qualify for a national interest exemption waiver from the U.S. government. Britt, thank you so much for joining me today. Please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like Nicole said, my name's Britt. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm a second-time host mom. I have two kids, almost 4 and almost 2, and I am 38 weeks pregnant with our third.
That's amazing. So you are soon to have 3 little ones. What are your and your husband's professions?
So I work in healthcare. I'm a physician assistant. I'm a PA at a children's hospital here in the Twin Cities in the trauma department. So about as intense as it sounds, pediatric trauma. And my husband also has kind of a heavier job in social work. He works with underserved single moms and their kids.
Are you both seeing COVID patients?
So I work in the healthcare setting. My husband works for a nonprofit, and he's mostly gotten to be work from home flex or in a really safe setting. I do take care of some COVID patients. It's kind of more incidental because my patients are being admitted for injuries and they get swabbed for COVID upon admission. And if they happen to have COVID, then obviously we manage that too. But most of the pediatric patients would be managed by a different service. So
that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a host family? I think you said this is your second time hosting.
Yeah, so we initially looked into the au pair program after having around the time that we had our second 2 years ago, and just were trying to compare and contrast options for which all parents can understand, moving from one to multiple kids, and then obviously coordinating childcare and the financial burdens that come with more than one kid in childcare. So we started looking into it, I think mainly related to my schedule. And it was kind of like the 3 little bears thing where a daycare center wasn't going to be a great fit because I only work 3 shifts a week and they make you pay full time. And then a nanny would have been really complicated because I work days and nights. We probably would have had to hire more than one person. And I thought back to another demanding time in my life when I was in PA school, and one of our classmates actually had an au pair from France. And I remember her experience being really positive, and just thinking about that model and how really ideal it is for other families in similar scenarios with random hours or demanding jobs that aren't just Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And even those families that are, obviously, but I think the au pair program was just like really well suited for our family's needs as far as hours go. And then based on my husband and I's past experience, we actually met abroad in Haiti and have a little bit of an international experience growing up, both of us. We were super interested in the aspect of having our kids exposed to another culture and other languages.
That's really cool that you guys met abroad. Where have the last 2 au pairs been from?
So our first au pair was from Germany, and our current au pair that's been here just over a month is from Colombia.
Oh, that's cool. So it's nice that you had different countries. How has the adjustment been for the kids?
You know, that has been really interesting the second time around. Obviously, they're both older. Something that I didn't necessarily anticipate is how much they, especially my oldest, who's almost 4, bonded to the first au pair. And so there's been normal growing pains of getting used to our new au pair and asking for the old one, even though she hasn't been with us for 8 or 9 months, because we did have a gap in between.
I spend most of my time talking to families that are considering the program, and I always mention that it's very often difficult for the family, especially the children, when the au pair's contract is up and their visa expires and they have to go home. So that makes a lot of sense that a new au pair coming in is probably might take a little bit longer for the kids to get adjusted to, but I'm sure that they'll love it the same.
Such a deep bond that I think I didn't necessarily, I mean, I knew that they were well bonded when our first au pair was here, but I didn't appreciate it as much, like how long lasting her impact was, especially on my 4-year-old until now, which when he's still talking about her, and she hasn't lived with us since July. But au pairs just, I think because they're in your home and because the model is that they're part of your family, it's just such a different level of bond between the kids and the au pair, and then obviously host parents and the au pair.
Well, hopefully when things are better and travel opens up, your whole family can go visit her in Germany.
Yes, we would love that.
We love to hear these success stories. You know, it's why we do what we do. Now, we understand that you qualified for a national interest exemption. And for those of you that are watching that are new to the term, basically, national interest exemption is a waiver program that the U.S. State Department put forth shortly after the presidential proclamation, which was banning J-1 visas. So there's a few different ways that families can qualify. One of the ways is if you're a healthcare professional dealing with COVID patients, or working on the front lines, or a medical researcher battling COVID, or if a family has a child with particular or special needs and you're able to find an au pair with that exact experience. What was the NIE application process like for you? And you do have something to compare it to because you've hosted an au pair previously.
So we initially matched with our au pair, or current au pair, like on the day of the presidential proclamation. It was June 22nd, little did we know. So this is June of 2020, we matched. And then we were told, maybe October would be the next available arrival date. And it became clear pretty soon on, obviously after the presidential proclamation, that wouldn't be possible. So I believe it was August that we first applied for the NIE. I know that it's very country dependent as far as response, but we were denied. We were basically told that I didn't qualify. And I think looking back, maybe the verbiage that I used as far as my role, I don't know, if because my primary role isn't COVID patients, like, yes, I've taken care of plenty of COVID patients, but it's not the only thing that I do. Or if in my unique situation, since I'm not an MD, if advanced practice providers, PAs, and nurse practitioners maybe aren't as well known. And, I encounter that sometimes in my field of people having to explain what my role is as a PA, that I am a provider, I'm seeing my own patients, that sort of thing. So initially we were denied. Then there was that case out of Northern California, I guess APIA qualified under, as far as that it was overreach. And so we were basically told to continue to try to pursue. And we had a couple of visa appointments get granted and then denied. So kind of at that point, we had started thinking about lots of different options. It was actually our au pair, honestly, that encouraged us. She's very type A, had done her fact finding with the embassy and called and explained the situation. And they basically told her to resend a letter. So I edited my initial application for the NIE and sent that sometime the first week in January 8 or so. And she had a visa appointment January 21st. And it was granted. So she came in February. I don't really know which, if it was the chicken or the egg or which thing we qualified under. I just will say that if, especially families that are applying that aren't MDs, I think it's really important to state your role if it's an embassy worker that doesn't know what a nurse practitioner is or does, or PA or that sort of thing.
I bet that you're right about that piece of it. When it comes to who makes the decisions at the embassy, it's basically the consular. So it's the person that's interviewing the au pair that day. That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Our situation goes to show that it's not a dead end if you don't get it the first time.
I'm glad that you shared that experience, because there might be other families out there who are kind of going through something similar and are feeling, like it's not going to happen for them. So thank you for that.
One last thing is that just speaks to the volume of how much we felt strongly about this candidate. It would have been easy, to say, sorry, like to break our match and try to find a new au pair, find an au pair in country. But some of these candidates are just so strongly qualified, and you have like an immediate connection to them, that it really was worth it for us to figure out things in the interim, because we felt so strongly about her. And so far, our gut has been right, and it's been a really nice fit.
That's great. Ultimately, that's exactly what it comes down to. It comes down to finding the right fit for your family, and that's going to be the most successful. And it makes the most sense for you. It makes the most sense for Au Pair in America, and the most sense for the au pair, right? Good for you guys. I'm glad that it ended up working out. How would you say hosting an au pair has impacted you and your husband professionally?
Before the pandemic, with our first au pair, it just was really nice to have that flexibility, especially at that time we had an infant. So our first au pair started when our second born was 3 months old, right at the kind of the start of when they can start watching infants. And it was just so special to see, again, that bond and that consistency, especially in the first year of life. I think that's just huge for development and nurturing of infants. this time around, and actually, our first au pair was here towards the end of the pandemic. It's just the flexibility of constantly changing schedules is, there's no match, right? Any other type of childcare that you're going to have, there's going to be more rigid constraints. And it's just really helpful to know that right now my husband works from home 2 days a week, and in person 3 days a week. And we don't know, with vaccine availability, when he'll go back to work out of the home full time. But knowing that our au pair and the constraints of her hours and her flexibility will allow us to make that change pretty swiftly when we need to.
Do you feel that you and your family, especially the kids, are safer having an au pair as their child caregiver as opposed to like a nanny coming in and out of the house, or being in daycare?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a bigger element of control. We spoke at length before she came, and then since she's come, about what sorts of things we're comfortable with. And again, our situation is unique in the sense that I'm about to deliver. So I would say maybe 6 months ago, we would have been a little bit more comfortable with different things, but now it's like, let's get everything on lockdown and limit risk of germs and exposure soon to having a new baby. But yeah, I think just having experienced my 3-year-old is in preschool a couple of days a week, and the quarantines and things that have happened, which are obviously good and have prevented further outbreaks, but that's so disruptive and in a way unsafe, in the sense that if you're in a daycare and there's a positive case, and then you don't know how long it's going to be closed, and then I think it's safer for not even from a infectious standpoint, but it's safer just from a security standpoint for the kids, that they're not going from plan A to plan B to plan C, sometimes within the same week.
Less of a disruption in your schedule and your childcare. And especially right now, I think when so many things are uncertain for all of us, especially when it comes to, childcare and school, it makes a lot of sense. So as a healthcare worker who sees the benefit of live-in childcare on a daily basis, would you recommend that other medical and healthcare professionals consider the au pair program and national interest exemption?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of my friends that hear about it and talk, and we are talking to, most of the time are apt to look into it and join. It's just like they don't have the housing situation or the extra room that can sometimes be limiting. But yeah, I think the biggest adjustment is not learning to live with another person. And that's most people's concern, is like, oh, I don't know if I'd want someone in my mix like all the time or after hours. And again, with the right au pair and the right understanding and boundaries, I think the growing pains of having another adult in your house are really quite minimal.
What would you say is the hardest adjustment?
This time around, there's been a few, and especially having different au pairs from totally opposite ends of the world, there's been a few cultural and language things that we've been like, just sort of understanding and clarifying. I think the hardest part is really probably for the kids, especially my kids, having had a big gap between au pairs. I mean, obviously that wasn't ideal for any of us, but it did kind of feel this time around like starting over, like establishing that, okay, there are times where mom and dad are physically in the home and working, but now this third adult is your point of contact and is, the authority figure and the caretaker, and just getting them comfortable with that. But again, I think it just takes a little bit of time. Like we've noticed every week, things that were hard last week getting better.
That's amazing. What is something that your family has learned about another culture or country's customs from the 2 au pairs that you hosted?
Our German au pair, we've learned lots about different holidays, and even like Americans tend to have like birthday month and start celebrating early. And I remember her saying there was something sort of superstitious about, nope, you don't say happy birthday to me until it's my birthday and on my birthday. And our current au pair from Colombia, that's something that's been different, is just meal structure. I'm one and I think a lot of Americans maybe would be really apt to skip lunch, and lunch is by far the biggest meal. And I remember the first week, she's like, it's really stressing me out how little you guys eat for lunch. And like, this isn't my norm. And then now there's this huge dinner. And so we've kind of flexed even our meals, when we can, of like, okay, yeah, we can have lunch be a bigger meal than we normally would have, and a light dinner that's probably healthier anyway. Most of the time, culturally too, they're getting like a 2-hour lunch break to be able to do that. Most of us don't even have a lunch break. So
not here. Not here. So if you could describe your experience hosting an au pair in one word, what would it be?
I would say, just as a mom of young kids and in the line of work that I do, where I see a lot of really hard things, is just a relief. I know that my kids are safe and that I have reliable childcare, no matter what the demands that I have at work. Just knowing that I can go to work and really not worry about my kids is huge.
I love that. That's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing all of your stories and experiences about hosting. And thank you for being such a wonderful host family. Congratulations on the new baby. And I know that you are busy and need to get back to your patients. So with that, that's all the time that we have for today. Britt, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
That is joining us to hear about these healthcare heroes that are experiencing hosting an au pair with Au Pair in America during COVID-19, particularly regarding the national interest exemption. If anyone watching would like more information about hosting, you can visit us at aupairinamerica.com, and you're welcome to schedule a call with my team. We're happy to chat with you further about NIE and to find out if hosting an au pair is a good fit for your family.